Hey, welcome back, Knicks fans. Just wanted to drop a quick video talking about the previous game the New York Knicks played. They played the Portland Trail Blazers, and they had a pretty, they were able to beat this team by 30 points, and it was a game that they had to win and they should have won because the Portland Trail Blazers were without a ton of players. But the Knicks won by 30 points, so they did a good job basically taking care of business. However, I wanted to look at basically that 30 points margin, and I wanted to see how each player contributed to that 30-point margin. And so that's pretty much what I have on the screen here, and that's what I'm about to get to. So essentially, what I did was I gathered a few statistics from the box scores, and the reason I gathered these statistics were because, like I said, these are the stats that I did some research, and these are the stats that I found that best determines a team's ability to win over the course of a season. So there's a relationship between these statistics and the team's win percentage. And so what I did was, and those three stats were actually defensive rebound, field goal percentage, and opponent field goal percentage. So I also gathered an additional two statistics here. I gathered basically the point for each player. And then I also gathered how much the opponent scored against each of our players, because I also wanted to basically we want to figure out what the net production was, right? So we want to see how many points we produce, like each player produced, and then how many points the opponents scored against each of our players. And then we're going to basically net both of those off to come out of net production. And so just going through the stats here real quick so you guys see what I picked up. So defensive rebounds is one of them. Field goal percentage is the other. Opponent field goal percentage. Points. Opponent points. And so these are the stats that I picked up these are from the traditional, these four are from the traditional box score. This I had to tabulate this myself. And it took some time. It took about an hour to do. Just had to go through the video logs on NBA.com, and then basically I went through each shot that was taken by the opposing team, and I assigned each shot that was taken to a specific player. If it was a make, I assigned how many points to that player. If it was a miss, I assigned 0 to that player, and so that's kind of how I was able to come up with the opponent points here. And so the other statistics that I did gather from the box score was the advanced analytics, which is offensive rating, defensive rating, and the net rating. So everything else here that's kind of highlighted in green, that's shaded in green, these are calculations that I did. I made these calculations using these statistics from the box scores, and then after I did the calculations, I did some sorting here below. And so let's just get right into it here. And so the point here is we want to evaluate each player. We want to see how much each player has contributed to the win. We want to see how much they contributed in terms of net production. Like I said before, how many points did they score and how many points did the opponent score against them, and it's going to give us a net production here. The other thing we wanted to look at that's extremely important is we wanted to look at the net efficiency for each player. So we gathered basically how many what each individual shot, so their field goal percentage, and then what the opponent shot against them as well. And of course, we also gathered the individual's, defensive rebounds. And so the first thing I did here I wanted to calculate what the net player efficiency was. And so net player efficiency is essentially me subtracting the opponent field goal percentage from our player's field goal percentage, and it lets me know if they were more efficient than the opponent or if they were less efficient than the opponent. And as you see here, for example, RJ Barrett was less efficient. He shot 50%, and the opponent shot 53% against him. And also the opponents was able to put up 24 points. But however, as you see here, RJ Barrett did drop 31 points. And so although his net player efficiency, he was less efficient than the opponent was, he did produce more than the opponent did. So he basically produced 7 more points than the opposing players that he had to guard during this game. Right? And so the other thing we have over here, like I said, we have offensive rating, defensive rating, and then a net rating here. And with that, what I wanted to do a calculation. I wanted to figure out what the efficiency for our players were. And so in order to do that, I'm adding the net player efficiency, um, and I'm also adding the net rating here. That is what I am doing. And this does not look right. Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It is correct. I didn't add it. I'm sorry. This is the average of the two. So I took the average of the net rating and the net player efficiency, which is here. So I converted this here from percentage to numbers, just so I can do get the average here, get the calculation, and that's what I have here: the net player efficiency and the net rating. I took the average of both of them, and that's what I have here. And then what I did over here, I wanted to figure out how much, we have the defensive rebounds over here, right? And we had a total of 38, and so I want to see how much each player contributed, right? We know the amounts that the players contributed, right? So RJ Barrett had 2 out of 38, but I wanted to convert that into percentage. And so RJ Barrett was responsible for 5.26% of the defensive rebounds that the team had. And so that's what I wanted to show here. Then the other thing I wanted to also show here was a net, like who was responsible for what portion of the total margin. So the margin of victory was 30 points. And I said here, RJ Barrett was able to score his opponents by 7 points. Randall scored his opponents by 6 points. Mitch scored his opponent by 1 point. Evan by 2. Brooks scored his opponent by 3 points. Sims basically got outscored by 3 points. He had 5 points and the opponent had 8 points. He had 5 points here. Opponent had 8 points. Although he was more efficient than the opponent, however, he did produce less points than his opponents did. And Emmanuel quickly 5 basically produced 2 points more than his opponent. His opponent scored 16 points on him, and he scored 18 points. Emmanuel quickly shot 80% from the field, but he really struggled today on the defensive end, and so the opponent did put up was very efficient against Emmanuel quickly. I mean, he did a good job staying on his man and stuff, but he wasn't very effective in terms of actually either when a person took the shot, being able to alter the shot so the person that actually misses the shot. And so, but he did have a net production of +2, and also net player efficiency. He was more efficient than the other player by 5%. Right, and so that's essentially what I was doing here with the net production. I'm trying to figure out who was responsible for what percentage of the net production. So RJ Barrett was responsible for 23%. Randall was responsible for 20% of the margin. Mitch was responsible for 3% of the total margin. Evan Fournier was responsible for 6.6% of the total margin. Burst was responsible for 10% of the total margin. Sims, he took away from the total margin, so he was minus 10% because his opponent did score him by 3 points. And we're talking about basically the net production. Did you score more points than your opponents did in the matchups, right? And so for Sims, no. And so that was a 10% drag. And so quickly was responsible for 6.6% of the margin. Arca Diacono was responsible for 10% of the margin because he only played only two minutes, so he scored only 3 points, but the person he was guarding didn't score at all, and he only basically played 2 or 3 minutes. Obi Toppin was responsible for 30% of the margin, which was pretty big. Obi Toppin essentially he had 13 points. The person he was guarding only had 4 points, and so although he wasn't very effective defending him, he just I guess his man only took it from the looks of it. The people he was guarding only took maybe 4 shots. Obi Toppin only played 14 minutes anyway, but so yeah. His opponent scored 4 points. He scored 13 points, so he was plus 9 points against his matchup. And also, if you look, his net player efficiency was 10%, so he was 10% more efficient than the opponent he was guarding as well. And so that's what we have here with the net production. We're trying to figure out who was responsible for what, for basically this 30-point margin, and we're trying to convert that into percentages. So that's what we did here. And then in this percentage of impact contribution, all I just did, I just added the defensive rebound percentage plus the net percentage of net production, and so that's what I'm calling percentage of impact contribution, right? And so these are all the calculations that I did, and so the only other thing that I did was down here I essentially sorted these, right? And so instead of trying to combine the efficiency numbers here, because I have efficiency numbers here, which just tells me how efficient the players were in terms of scoring and also defending. And then I also have here impact numbers, so that's basically margin of victory. How much did they outscore the opponent by, their matchups by, and then how much defensive rebound did they get, right? And so this is a percentage here, and these are basically just this is basically just numbers here, right? And so I didn't want to combine both of them. I could have easily converted this to numbers and then added it together. However, I wanted to do it a little differently. Instead of adding it together, converting this to numbers and add it together, I wanted to see what it looked like by just sorting them separately, right? And so the first thing I did was, the first one I sorted was the efficiency numbers. And so as you sort the efficiency numbers, Arcidiacono was on top, but Arcidiacono only played like 2 or 3 minutes, so it doesn't really count, so you have to ignore this here. Mitchell Robinson, we're not too surprised. Mitchell Robinson, like I've said this so many times before, he plays at the rim. He basically lives at the rim, and he's a pretty decent defender, and so that always has a pretty big impact on his has a huge impact on his named player efficiency. So he shot 100% from the field. The opposing offensive players only shot 25% against him. He only scored 7 points. The opponent scored 6 points against him. And so his net production was 1, but he was 75% more efficient than the people that went up against him. And so that is important. And the reason why the efficiency numbers are also important is you kind of can take a look at these efficiency numbers, the ones that are really inflated, right? You can ask yourself, okay, for example, Arcidiacono, we know why it's really inflated. He only got 2 or 3 minutes, hit 1 shot, and the other person he guarded didn't hit a shot. And so it's kind of it's really skewing the numbers. It makes it really inflated, right? But he only played 3 minutes, so we can't count him. But Mitchell Robinson, we do know, for example, he lives basically at the rim. He's athletic, he's big. And so what this can tell you is maybe we need to find ways to get Mitchell Robinson the ball more in the paint, right? And this is what everyone talks about. We've been talking about this the whole year. And so that's why this net player efficiency and net rating is extremely important, because it tells you who the most efficient players on your team are. And then if you have players on your team that are more efficient than, let's say, RJ Barrett and Julius Randle, then that means the coach needs to find ways to try to get that player the ball more, right? Yes, it's limited where he can get the ball. Yes, he's at the rim, but obviously, but you need better plays and you need better playmaking so you can get Mitch Robinson shots at the rim. And it doesn't have to be lobs all the time. Mitchell Robinson has pretty decent, feel around the basket. Just basically have him post up once in a while and dump the ball into him, and so he can do basically a turnaround, overhand hook or something like that. And so, but that's why these efficiency numbers are extremely important, because that's what it does. It's not just to say, Mitchell Robinson is the most efficient and he's having the biggest impact on the team. That's not really the only reason to do that. Although, however, if you look at a lot of the efficiency numbers and player impact numbers on the NBA stat websites and also on Basketball Reference, Mitchell Robinson by far is the highest impact player on our team, and he's also the most efficient. Obviously, his player efficiency rating is the highest on the team, and so he is the highest rated player on the New York Knicks. And this obviously shows you why, because of how efficient he is and also how well he plays defense. And so because of the difference between these two, these margins, like 75% more efficient than his matchup, that's the reason why a lot of those ratings from Mitchell Robinson are extremely high. Miles McBride, he only took one shot. Basically, he was 1-on-1 for the field. It was a three-pointer, but he did get to the line 4 times, and so he had a total of 7 points. His opponent had 7 points, and so it was a net production of 0. He didn't, it was a tie. He didn't win the matchup, but he was more efficient than his opponent. He took one shot and made it. His opponents basically took. I'm not sure how many shots they took, but I think they took quite a few shots against McBride. But he held them to 33% shooting, which is really good. And so you have this net player efficiency. He was 67% more efficient than his matchups. However, it didn't, translate to a lot of production, right? And honestly, you guys know how I feel about McBride. Let's just say he's not even ready, right? Especially to play on the offensive end. You can tell his confidence is a little shot on the offensive end. And personally, I think the reason for that was the coach. Before the coach pulled him from that Toronto game, he was actually playing pretty fine. He played pretty well against the Warriors. He didn't have any issues being aggressive, knowing when to be aggressive against the Warriors. He was able to put up some points. And same thing when he played against the Houston Rockets. And even I think the Miami Heat, there was a blowout loss we had to the Heat, and he played in that. And they were trying to make a comeback, so it wasn't like it was garbage time, and it was like the Heat weren't really trying to play. But I do feel like once they get this kid comfortable, I do think he's going to be one of our more efficient players. And the reason why that is not because he's going to be this great offensive player. It's going to be because of this here. Because this game he played, he held the players to like 33% shooting. Granted, basically Trailblazers had essentially a G League team out there. However, he did his job, and he did a good job. So the next person, net player efficiency and net rating was 27. That was Sims, so he was 4. Well, we're removing Arcidiacono, right, from the list. So Mitch was 1, McBride is 2, Sims is 3, right? And Sims, we already kind of talked about it. 66%, 67% from the field. His opponent shot 50%. He got outscored by 3 points and on his matchup, but he was more efficient. And so that's why his efficiency numbers is so high. And also these efficiency numbers, just to let you guys know, it also incorporates, like I said, it's net player efficiency and the net rating. And so it's including this team rating here. And so the team rating, the net rating for the team while he was on the court was plus 37. His individual net player efficiency was, almost 17%. And so he contributed to winning basketball on the court, right? So it wasn't like this was close to 0 and everyone was like at 37, right? And so he did make a contribution, and a lot of these are kind of high also because this is a blowout win, so we have to keep that in mind. So look at these offensive ratings. These are basically, look at these net ratings. These are basically double digits. All of them, there's none of them are below 19. Actually, the lowest one is basically 19.9. And so that's why these are extremely high. But this is something that's good to see. You want to see these net ratings. It needs to be positive. And so this is how you show this when you have a net rating. When this net rating looks like this, where everything is positive like this, especially double digits, that usually means it was a blowout. And then also, if you look here, the net player efficiency as well. So if you look here, the net production here, everyone was positive except for Sims. He was outscored by 3 points. And so this is also another, obviously, that's how he was able to get to this 30-point margin here, right? But this here is focusing on the net player efficiency. And so essentially that's essentially what it was. But if you guys notice here, in terms of efficiency, the team, so a few people I do want to talk about. I want to talk about Julius Randle. His NPE and net rating, the average of both of them, the average of both of them combined was 14.79, almost 15. And he's on the lower half of the team. He's like one of the lowest on the team. And then RJ was also lower, right? And the problem with that is like so Julius Randle he shot only 27% from the field, right? And basically 28% from the field. The opponent shot 33%. So the opponent was actually more efficient than he was from the field. He did produce more points, but the reason why he produced more points because he took more shots than the combination of all the people that he guarded. And so that's the reason why he was able to produce 6 more points than the opponent. And the same thing with RJ. And obviously we know this is an issue. Efficiency has been a huge issue for Julius Randle and RJ Barrett this year. Julius Randle, I think, is shooting 42%. People talk about how he's making it. We're seeing like the last year's Randle, like the most improved player Randle. I mean, I beg to differ. I think people need to go back and look at the last 10 games and look at what the average is, what his average is for the last 10 games. Look at it and come back and tell me if you're looking at if you see most improved player in the recent games. And look at the last 10 games, look at the last 20 games, and look at the last 30 games, and then comment below and let me know what he's shooting during those the last 10, 20, and 30 games. And let me know if that looks like most improved player Julius Randle. It's not even close. All those games, I think he's shooting like between 40 and like 42%. During those range of games, last 10, last 20, and last 30. And so, and as you see here, that he had a bad shooting night again. The opponents also had a bad shooting night, luckily for him. So his net player efficiency wasn't as bad as it could have been. And I watched a lot of the tapes, and they were just missing shots, and he was extremely fortunate. Half the time, sometimes he doesn't even bother running out at the 3-point line, especially when it's his responsibility, he just won't do it. And he just lets his man go a lot. He's just not, the effort is just not there. I think he's really gotten people fooled lately because they're saying he's playing a lot more energy and he's playing harder. He's playing harder. He's playing with more energy on the offensive end. The defense has been atrocious. It's been really bad. And so we were extremely lucky that we were playing the Portland G League Trailblazers. And so that's the reason why they were just missing a ton of shots, wide open shots. And so that's really why, he was fortunate. His could have been a lot worse, his efficiency numbers. And then Burks is the other person, obviously. So these three guys here get the most minutes on our team. Randall, Burks, and RJ, right? They're the ones that are getting the bulk of the minutes, but look where they're at in terms of efficiency numbers. And this is basically, and if you look, their team rating was extremely high. It was high for these three guys. They were amongst the highest on the team, right? However, for some reason, their individual ratings was just bad. Randall shot 28%, Burke shot 33% and allowed 38% shooting. RJ shot 50%. He played well. His efficiency was good today. But he's been struggling with his efficiency lately either. Like I said, RJ Barrett for the season is shooting 41% over the last 10 games or so. I think he's shooting like maybe 42%. I think it might be sub 40 possibly. Who knows? I can't remember. But he hasn't been shooting well lately. But this was a very good shooting game he had. He shot 50% from the field. However, he struggled a little bit on defense and allowed 53% shooting. And so his net player efficiency was negative. So the opposing offensive players were more efficient on the court than RJ Barrett was. However, RJ Barrett took a lot more shots and was more productive. RJ Barrett allowed 24 points, but he did score 31, so he was 7 points. He was able to outscore his matchups by 7 points. However, like I said, we're focused mostly on efficiency. If you look at his number here, the average of his net rating and his net player rating. So the net player rating is individual stat, and then the net rating is a team stat. This is how well the team performed while he was on the court. The average of both of them was 11.5, right? And the reason why that is because this was a negative number this is a positive. So it just really drags it down. So instead of taking half of this, so half would have been like, let's say 13.25, right? But no, it's, you have to reduce that 13.25 by, by 3.33. Or some, not 3.33, half of 3.33, right? Yeah. So essentially, that's what we have there. That's why this efficiency is so low. And then of course you have Evan Fournier. He's another one who gets a lot of minutes. So these four guys here, these are basically, these are the guys that are supposed to be, the coach. These are the best, according to the coach, these are the best players on our team, right? And look, I'm not saying they're not. These are very talented players. However, they've really stunk it up this year. It's, you can, if you want, you can blame it on the coach. You can also blame it on the players, because even if the coach is running terrible plays and is not putting you in the best spots to succeed, I mean, sometimes you still have to. You're the one who's taking a shot, right? And you have a brain, and so it's up to you. A lot of these guys are not rookies, right? The only one here who's really young that you can give a benefit of a doubt to is RJ, but he's the only one who's actually he's really made huge strides over time. Evan Fournier as well. Evan Fournier has really made huge strides on the offensive end, but RJ Barrett is the one person that you can say, okay, you can cut him some slack because the kid is, he's like 21 and he's getting better. But Evan Fournier, he's at that list. These four guys, it's just they're really struggling on the defensive end. Either they're struggling on the defensive end or they're struggling shooting. So Randall and Burks are struggling shooting the ball. RJ and Evans shot the ball well, but they struggled on defensive end. And so that's why their net player efficiency, individual net player efficiency, was negative. So the opposing players were more efficient. It would just so happen that these guys took more shots than the opposing in their matchups did, and they were going to, right. The other team, the Trailblazers, they had to spread the ball. There wasn't any superstars. There wasn't like a great player on the other side that they can lean on to get buckets every time, and so so there wasn't any of that. RJ, basically, he was able to get 24 points put up against him because he was lined up against Josh Hart quite a bit, and also against I'm sorry, I can't remember the kid's name. Yeah, he used to be on the Rockets, good 3-point shooter. But anyway, so he was matched up against some scorers, and so that's why they were able to put up 24 points against him. However, the efficiency for these guys. These are the studs right here, right? It's just way too low. And so, and it's good to look at this, and this tells you why. And this is in the win. This is in a blowout win. But if you look at their individual stats, you kind of see like these guys, yes, they contributed to the win, because if you look at the net rating while they were on the floor, it was really high, right? And so they did a good job. However, this shows you that they need to work on efficiency. And a lot of time for the season, the average for the season, these guys are actually negative on this. Like these, I think, actually these four guys, when we look at let's take a look at it for the season. I did a video a few days ago. So let's look at the net player efficiency here. So these are the guys that get the bulk of the minutes on our team, right? Aside from Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell Robinson is not included because he is efficient. He's the only efficient person that's getting over 20 minutes on that team. Julius Randle, when you add the net player efficiency and the net rating, minus 7.9, almost minus 8. RJ Barrett is minus 7.3. Evan Fournier minus 7.2. Alec Burks minus 6.2. And Kemba Walker, remember with Kemba Walker, he was getting a lot of minutes. Minus 16. Wow. Minus 16. So the net rating while he was on the floor was minus 9 for the team, right? And his net player efficiency was minus 6.7. So it was just really bad. And so this is the reason why. You want to look at these numbers because it shows you why the New York Knicks are just a bad team right now, why they struggle. Because even in this win, you see like our basically our horses, our studs right here, these four, they were amongst the lowest efficiency. Yeah, they took the bulk of the shots. That has a big lot to do with it. But again, like I said, what it does is like it makes it makes you kind of like you should say okay, what does this mean? Like, is there anyone on the team that's efficient? Like, what else can we do different? What other options do we have? And so the other option is you have someone like, okay, let's start with Mitchell Robinson. Mitchell Robinson, we know for sure that if there was better playmaking, we can utilize his size more. He'll be averaging double digits. He might be averaging probably even 14 to 16 points. If we had good playmaking by the guards, by the point guards, or by even RJ Barrett. RJ Barrett is he finds Mitch sometimes, but a lot of times he's very tunnel vision. He's too busy trying to go to the basket so he can miss the layup. But look, I'm not trying to pick on RJ. He's been improving a whole lot. But he does need to improve his efficiency. He's young, and he is going to get better. As we saw, he went through stretches this year, especially good long stretches where he was actually making his layups. And so hopefully that's something we can see as we go forward. But however, not to get distracted, R.J. Barrett is he's the only one who's capable of finding Mitchell Robinson. But he doesn't really do it all the time, And so, Mitchell Randall, he has the highest usage on our team. He's the playmaker. He's the one who's supposed to be creating for everyone. And I don't remember Randall ever throwing a lob to Mitchell Robinson. If he did, I can't remember. Maybe it's happened maybe once, but I don't even remember that. So it's like I don't think he's ever thrown a lob to Mitchell Robinson this year. I don't think he did it last year, and so it just kind of shows you what kind of playmaking we have and why we can't take advantage of this efficiency up here. That's what it's all about. You got to find a way to take advantage of this efficiency. You have it here. You got to take advantage of it. Then the next person for sure that you can take that has efficiency that you can take advantage of it is Obi Toppin. And Obi Toppin, everyone says you need a point guard. That is true. You do need a point guard to unlock Obi Toppin. But we also seen Obi Toppin can now put the ball on the floor. And so there's certain things you can do. You can actually run some pick and rolls with Obi Toppin, right? Run some pick and rolls with him, get him the ball on the wing, and see. And he's very good at making very fast decisions. Either shooting the ball, he'll either shoot it, or he's going to make a move to the basket and go up. And he's getting better at going up hard to the basket. He's just getting a better feel of the game, but he needs the minutes and he needs the chance. But he's another person where the efficiency is there. He's one of your more efficient players on the team. He's actually averaging like 51% from the field on the year. And so they need to find a way to go to Obi Toppin in the future. And that's if they want to improve efficiency on this team. I know some people like to think like, he's a bum and he's a bust. And I don't know. When I see him on the floor, I just don't see that. I just don't see bust. He flashes very well. I know that three-pointer is pretty broke, but, he's, 6'9", 6'10"? He's a power forward / center. He's not supposed to be out in the corner trying to shoot threes, And he's trying to, he needs to find it. He should be trying to get him to slash to the paint, or trying to get him the ball in the post so he can turn around and take a shot. He's got a very nice jump hook from the box. He doesn't even need to get that low. Just get him on that box, get the ball to him, and have him turn over, turn to the left or to the right, whatever he needs to do, and get us easy deuce. And so so those are the two right off the bat, that you can see, that they can lean to. I mean, Sims is another one. His efficiency is high. He's great. He puts pressure on the rim. Oh, the athleticism is insane. And I've seen he's got some pretty decent touches. And Sims just, again, he's another player that just needs time. But right now we're talking about the ones you can go to and get more out of that the Knicks just haven't been able to do it. And that's Mitchell Robinson and Obi. The efficiency is there. You just got to find a way to unlock it, and they just haven't been able to unlock it. And this is no way to malign R.J. Barrett. This is no way to malign Julius Randle, Burks, R.J., and Evan Fournier. RJ and Evan has played much better. Has been playing better of late. RJ his efficiency has dropped off recently again. However, we've seen improvement in his game, and you do like to see that. And hopefully, that continues. But it's on these players. It's on them to be more productive. So this is basically the ranking for the efficiency, how efficient these players were, and so who had in terms of efficiency, who had the top impact, who had top impact on his game. Like I said, it was Mitchell. Like I have it ranked here. You got Mitchell Robinson, McBride, Sims, Quickly, Obi, Randall, Burks, R.J. Evan, and so Evan was actually in last place, and that was because he shot great. He did a good job shooting the ball today. It's just his defense is just so bad. There was actually at one point they picked on him 3 in a row. They got 3 straight baskets picking on Evan Fournier. I think it might have been in the second quarter. They picked on him four straight times. They scored 3 times on him, 3 in a row on him. They tried the 4th time, they missed, and then they went away from it. I'm not sure why they went away from it. They should have been going at him like the whole night, and they did actually. They kept trying to go back to him. But however, like 67% is terrible. And actually, sometimes he's just lost, and sometimes I wonder if he's even trying on some days. There's some days I feel like he's putting in effort, but I didn't feel like he was really trying hard yesterday on the defensive end. But this is what we have with the net player efficiencies and how it ranked in this game, the net efficiencies. And so the next thing is basically player impact, right? And so with the player impact, what I did here was I went and I don't want to put a focus on this here. This is the percentage of points produced by each individual player. And we don't want to focus on that, right? Because that's not really what we're looking for. We're looking for net production. But I was able to calculate it. All it really is like I took all the points that's scored by each player, right? We scored 128 points, and I just figured out what each player scored, got it from the box score, and I just did a quick math to figure out the 20 points that Julius Randle accounted for 15.6% of the 128 points. That's pretty much what it is. That's all this is. R.J. Barrett accounted for 24% of our total points scored. Excuse me. And so, but let's not get too far into that. And so the purpose of this is to basically look at impact, basically total impact of who had the biggest impact on the game, in terms of production. And so the production we're looking at obviously, did you win your matchup against your opponents? Like how many points did you score the opponent, the person you were guarding by, right? And also we're trying to figure out how many defensive rebounds you got. And so these are 2 very important statistics in order to figure out basically this can determine the net production. Actually, you can't really use it to make any future projections. I guess if you had like what the average was, right? If I basically was tabulating this stuff every game, and I knew exactly how much each individual scored by game against each of these players, and you can tabulate it, you may be able to use that to try to see if there's a relationship between that, the defensive rebound, and the margin of victory. And there will be actually, there definitely would be if you looked at this. And so I'm trying to think, and you can also do a cross-sectional one, right? You can do basically what the average over the course of the season was, right? You could do it even for a team. And using that, you can use that to project using this net production and defensive rebound. I think, I'm just speculating, that you may be able to predict what the team's win percentage could be. One thing I do know, the best way what you can use to make that prediction is the net efficiency. So basically, the opponent field goal percentage, I'm sorry, your field goal percentage, opponent field goal percentage, and defensive rebound. These three are the ones that you can. I know that could be used to determine the team's win percentage. But let's not I don't want to get too distracted. We're trying to figure out what the impact is for each of these players, and so we're trying to figure out how much of the defensive rebounds were they responsible for. We had 38. Randall had 8 of them. That was 21% of our defensive rebounds. So Randall was responsible for 21% of our defensive rebound, right? And so net production, Randall had 20 points. The opponent had 14 points. He outscored the opponent by 6 points. We won by 30 points. Because we won by 30 points, Randall contributed 6 points to this 30-point win. He contributed a net production of 6 to the 30-point win, and that's 20%. That basically accounted for 20% of, it was 20% of the total margin of victory, right? And then what I did after that, I added these two together, percentages together to figure out what I call this percentage of impact contributed by each player. And so it's pretty interesting when you look at it. And I added it together, right? When you add it together, Randall is basically on top, right? He's at 41%. Obi was at 37.8%, and the reason why that is because it just Obi was efficient, right? He held his opponent to 4 points, and he scored 13 points, so he had 9, which was the highest on the team, the highest difference. And I've been saying for a while, I don't know if it's because he plays with the second unit quite often. You got to see him against starters more. But I am pretty impressed with his defensive effort. This game, it wasn't that great. Obviously he allowed 50% shooting. But Obi Toppin, honestly, I feel like I've been very impressed with his effort on the defensive end. And so I definitely think, all the statistics just screams that he's an impact player. He's efficient from the field. He makes smart decisions. And it seems like he's a pretty solid defender. So all the numbers seems to be pointing towards letting this kid play. But, it is what it is. It doesn't look like, that's going to happen. And so the third was R.J. Barrett. R.J. Barrett, the reason why his is a little lower because it's mostly because, R.J. Barrett basically contributed 7 points, right? But the problem is the 2 defensive rebounds he had. If he had more defensive rebounds, he would have been closer to Obi and Randall. But because he only had 2 defensive rebounds, and also he only outscored, although he's put up 31 points, you got to remember he did allow 24 points on the other end. Although truth be told, he was guarding the best offensive players on the Trailblazers for the most part. He spent a lot of time guarding those players, so that's also understandable. But he's in third place at 28.6. Burks was at 25.79. Quickly 19.8. Mitch was 13.86. And Mitch is low because of, Mitch is low because of, he's low because his, number one, his point total. He only had 7 points. And the opponent has 6 points with a net production of 1. And then his, he only had 4 defensive rebounds. And we know he does pretty good. He makes sure he boxes out usually. So although he doesn't always get to the ball a lot of times, he does a good job making sure he does box out and give the guards the opportunity to get a rebound. As I said before, we're going to eliminate Archie Diacono from this list here. And so he only played about 2 to 3 minutes. And so I don't think it's worth even evaluating him on this list. And McBride was the other person. Obviously also played. He played almost 20 minutes. I was actually pretty surprised. He played almost 20 minutes this game. So he had 4 defensive rebounds. This was actually very interesting. He had more He played less minutes, but had more defensive rebounds than RJ, who played 40 minutes. So it's very interesting. It tells you a lot about this kid. And of course, opponent field goal was low, but that's not what we're evaluating here. We're looking at the impact based on the defensive rebound and whether or not he outscored his matchup. He scored 7 points. Everyone he was guarding scored 7 points against him, and so he didn't give us an edge, or he didn't hurt us either. But his defense was really good, and he did a good job with the defensive rebound, and so that's why he's at 10.53. And Evan Fournier, if you look here, he only had one defensive rebound, and he has scored his opponent by 2 points, and so that's why his is at 9.3%. And the next person is Sims. Sims had 4 offensive rebounds. He didn't get a lot of minutes. I'm not sure how many minutes he got today. I can't even remember. I don't have it up. He got 4 defensive rebounds, which is good. However, he was outscored. The opponents did outscore him by 3 points, and so that did hurt him. And so that's what we have with him. That's why he's so close to 0%. However, I noticed here, because I added both of them together, why don't we see what happens if we use an average? Because when you add it together, it actually goes up to 200%. But let's just see, it should still be, the rank should still be the same if we do the average. At least I think, it should be the same. It shouldn't change. But let's just do it for giggles here. And let's see. Let's put this over here. So this is the average over here. This was the summation of these two here. This was just the average. And so, yeah, this is essentially, still comes out to the same. And yeah, it's just all it did was copy the number itself. Okay. And so there we have it. There we have it, folks. It's interesting. And so, yeah, so the rank doesn't change. Still the same. Randall was at 20.5. So he was responsible for 20% of the production in this game. So he was, it's crazy in terms of impact. If you're looking at it in terms of production, in terms of points scored, he did outscore the opponent by 6 points. And then also he had 8 defensive rebounds, and so that rebounding edge that he get, this is why he is valuable. One of the reasons why he's valuable to the team, and this is one of the reasons why he's also extremely valuable on the trade market, in my opinion. Julius Randle's, in my opinion, he's like a walk-in 2010. Even if you had to basically even if you were a little conservative, okay, so walk in 1810, and so that's valuable in this league, and I think that would be valuable for other teams as well. But you can see he definitely did have an impact, and looking at the game, it didn't seem like he had an impact. You look at the way he shot the ball, he shot only 28%. However, the other team, they just shot just as bad as he did. Although they shot better than he did, he was 5% less efficient. He did take more shots, and so he did produce more shots. He did produce more points than the opponents, and so it is what it is, right? And so he was the highest impact player on his game, although he was probably the worst shooter in his game. Obi Toppin was number 2, but mostly because he outscored his opponents by 9 points, and then also he did add in 3 rebounds. And RJ Barrett was number 3. And the reason why RJ Barrett was so low was because of It wasn't really because of the net production. Um, I mean, he could if he would have done better on the defensive end and kind of kept this down a little bit because you got to. He did allow 53% shooting. So if this was down below 50%, his average his impact percentage would be higher, in my opinion. But also you have to remember he only had 2 defensive rebounds. He's a pretty big guard. So you have to ask yourself. He played 40 minutes, had 2 rebounds, and McBride had 4 rebounds. Look, I'm not trying to pick on the dude, but you gotta be honest. Maybe it's because it's they've given up on the season and they're just kind of like out there, shooting the crap or whatever. But he can do a little better with the defensive rebound. It looks like somebody must have picked on Burks because Burks, I would say, the last month or so has picked up his rebounding. There's one point early in the season. One of the biggest problems early in the season with the team when they were running when Kemba Walker and Rose is out, they were running the Evan Fournier Burks lineup at the guard positions. We couldn't rebound to save our life. Part of it was also Mitch. Mitch was also around in shape at the time. But the biggest problem was having these 2 guys, it was just impossible to get rebounds because they get broken down. And when they get broken down, it's like everyone is scrambling. And then when a shot goes up, it's difficult to get to put a body on someone. And so, but it looks like he's made a real effort to improve his rebounding, to be more aggressive. Since he's actually one of the weak links on defense and he's causing, if you're going to cause, teams to get second chance points because you let the defense break down and it's hard for people to, get a body on someone in order to get a rebound, then you need to be active and become a better rebounder. And it looks like he really did that the last month or so. So you got to give him kudos for that. But yeah, that's why he was number 4, right? And quickly was the 5th one. He only has scored the opponent by 2 points. He struggled on the defensive end today, and he did have 5 defensive rebound as well. So he made some major contributions to this game and to the win. Next person is Mitchell Robinson. Wow. Impact was only less than 7%. He only has scored the opponent by 1 point and only had 4 defensive rebound. I mean, this is something Mitch needs to work on a little more sometimes. But, he does a great job putting body on people like I said. And he kind of clears the way for others to get the rebound a lot of times. And a lot of times he's also out of position because a lot of times he's challenging shots. Especially when people come to the lane, he needs to protect the rim. And so if he has to challenge a shot, he's going to be out of position. And he's not always going to be able to get the rebound. But he was basically at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He was at 6th. And, that's where he was at. And Archidiakono, like I said, we're not including him. McBride, 5.6%. And, he just, he didn't outscore his opponent. Obviously, on the offensive end, he's been very timid, but 4 defensive rebound, which was really good. And so that was a good thing. So he did have some contribution. So his contribution was essentially just the defensive rebound. His contribution to the margin of victory was just, well, it's not just to the margin of victory. Well, that is what we're talking about, right? We won the game, and we're trying to figure out who contributed to this 30-point margin of victory. But a part of that is not just how the people that outscored their matchups to add to that 30 points, but it's like we also do want to factor in the defensive rebound because that's one of the best ways to determine the team's ability to win ball games. And so the next person was Evan Fournier at 4.65. As you can see, him and Cam are towards the bottom. And Evan Fournier, the biggest problem for Evan was just the one. Well, he only has scored his opponent by 2 points, which is okay. He contributed something, right? You want nobody's saying you need to outscore the opponent by 10, 20 points or anything like that. As long as you actually outscore your opponent, you actually add to the team. And he was efficient as well, which is good. The problem was just his defense. He could have done just a little better on the defensive end. But also is his rebounding. It's like one rebound, you know. So he's got smaller players on our team who's getting more rebounds than he is, and so that was pretty interesting. And then of course the last person is Sims. Sims basically the reason why his is so low. He's basically at 25, a quarter of 1%, basically a little over a quarter of 1%, and that's because he only Sims had 4 defensive rebounds, but he got outscored by 3 points, and so that's really that kind of dragged his minutes, and also he didn't play a lot of minutes either, and so there you have it, folks. I basically went over. We won this game. We won by 30 points. And I wanted to identify who basically was responsible, who contributed to this 30-point victory, right? 30-point margin of victory. And so here's the 30-point margin of victory right over here. And we were able to determine what each player was able to contribute. Julius Randle, this is what he contributed. We turned that into a percentage here. And then we also determined, the defensive who got, how many defensive rebounds, converted that to percentage. Took the average. We added both of it at first as I ranked it. And then we also took the average. The best thing to do was actually to take the average so it adds up to 100%. This added exactly up to 200%, which is, it's okay. But, I took the average of both of it, which was actually the best thing to do. And still worked out well. And also we were looking at efficiency, right? Player efficiency. Like I said, if you see here, the reason why the net rating was so high for Julius, RJ, and the starters was because if you look at the impact on the game that they had, they had a huge impact on the game. Julius Randle was at 20.53, although he shot like 28% from the field. And the biggest reason why he took more shots, he was inefficient, but he was able to put up the 20 points. But also it was with the defensive rebound. His ability to rebound the ball really helps out the team. And it's important, obviously, because when a team misses the shot, we need to get the rebound to close out the possession. And that's why the defensive rebound it's extremely important. It's just, I can't remember how important it is, which of these three has a stronger correlation. I think field goal percentage may have the strongest correlation, and then opponent field goal, and then defensive rebound might be third. But either way, it's extremely important, and so that's why we basically figured that out, converted to percentages, and basically got the average for each of the players for both of them, for both of these. And once we got the average, we ranked it, and it showed us who had the highest impact. But like I said again, we also looked at the net player efficiency and the net rating for each of these players. And although the individual net player efficiency was really low for these guys, basically our biggest horses, it's interesting. They were less efficient. In terms of, basically, the opponent was more efficient than they were, but the net rating was higher, right? And so, but it's interesting to see that, and it's also interesting to look at it because there's other people that are more efficient on the team. And it's not just, if you look at the advanced analytics, it's not just the individual rating too. If you look at it for the season, it's not a fluke. Obi is one of them, and Mitchell Robinson is the other. And so it's one of those things where then you kind of have to say, okay, we're struggling here. These 4 guys are struggling, right? And we're struggling as a team. And so where else can we look to kind of improve efficiency, to score a little easier, to get more points? It's here. It's with these 2 players. That's just, in my opinion, it's just simple. At least that's what these statistics are suggesting to me. And so that's pretty much what I have for this game, guys. Please like and subscribe. Let me know what you think about this breakdown. This analysis was extremely long. It was I've been trying to refine this stuff over time. Um, and so it's extremely important that you guys let me know what you think, if you like it, or if it's too heavy on the stats, and if you guys just want a little more dialogue to just talk a little more about the game. I am going to put up more videos where I just kind of like rant a little bit, and maybe include a little bit of stats to back up my rant. But I think it's important for me to kind of create a format, right? And the format that I want to do, I want to be able to like evaluate these games a certain way. And this is the way I want to evaluate the games. I want to evaluate it based on efficiency, who were the most efficient on the team, rank them, and then who had the highest impact on the outcome of the game, and also rank it so we can see who they were. And so that's what we did here. And let me know what you guys think. Like, subscribe, comment below. I'll be more than happy to respond. Thank you.